Feel free to use any sound effects too, Kyle.
Oh, I love it.
That's what I told.
I'll be too distracted.
I know that's what I told the guys on Techlandia. They were like, "I'm like, I don't have to run all the sound effects because we started up the new one where we just introduced all the hosts, and we'll start in earnest on next Monday." All right, here we go, John. Edit here. Hello and welcome to Techlandia, the Mathlandia edition. How are you doing? I'm iPad. I was just gonna say I was iPad Sammy, Kyle. I'm not iPad Sammy. I'm officially switched to @JohnSamuelson on Twitter. That's how bad I forget. Do you know, Kyle? I lost 1,600 Twitter followers once I switched from iPad Sammy to John Samuelson, but I still tweet the same stuff.
Oh my goodness gracious! Well, the thing is you don't have the word iPad in your name anymore.
I know all those bots quit following me, so now I know. At least I know the people that follow me now are real people. Hopefully, um, I'm in Portland, Oregon this morning, and we have math teacher extraordinaire up in Canada. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Kyle Pierce, known as Mathlete Pierce on Twitter, from just outside Windsor, Ontario, in Canada.
That's right, and it is in. If he wanted to, he could drive up and meet with Michelle Cordy for a coffee at. Where would you meet at? Where would you meet at?
You know what? We could pull over one of the big highway that goes from Windsor all the way through Toronto up to Montreal is 401. So we'd probably just pull over right on the side of that highway, maybe hang out in a ditch, and have a cup of Java.
She is a big mountain bike rider, so she'd probably just pull out the mountain bikes. You guys could go on a little bike ride then.
Yeah, I think she'd beat me. I bought a road bike in the fall, and I'm trying to get into it. I really like it. I really enjoy it, but I'm definitely not ready to take on someone of Michelle's caliber.
Oh, I know. She's. I have a feeling that whatever she does, she just does it. She just does a really good job at it.
Yeah, there's no half-assing for her.
That's right. So anyway, thanks for joining us again. We had a great talk last time, Kyle. It was too long ago. We'll try and make this a monthly podcast for sure. It's just sometimes it gets hard, and then you have that winter break, and I don't know. I wanted to break. What about you? I needed a rest.
You know what? I think I needed the rest, although I wasn't willing to give it to myself. But ultimately, I think our schedules kind of forced it on us. We had how many times did we schedule a tentative date, and then we come up on it that week and say, oh my gosh, there's this happening or that's happening. Let's push it back again. So today it almost happened again. Trying to find a nice quiet place to make this happen, and we said, you know what, we got to just follow through and make it happen.
Yeah, that's so true. All right, well, we're going to share some stuff. Last time we had some great talks about the four-part math lesson, and Kyle has a recap for the four-part math lesson and some links that we can share after the show. And go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, after we did the podcast, I thought about it, and I was thinking, I'm really trying to promote visualizing mathematics and inquiry in mathematics, and it's really difficult to try to explain what that should look like or what it could look like. I shouldn't say what it should look like. I'm sure it will take on many different forms. But ultimately, when we're looking at a minds-on and introducing a new topic with inquiry or discovery, kind of contextualized math problem, and then heading into making connections in the consolidation phase, talking about it with just audio or, for those who are watching on video, just looking at our faces as we discuss it, might leave a lot of people scratching their heads. So what I did is at a recent session I had delivered in just outside of Toronto in the Peel District School Board, I taped the four-part math portion of that session. So I taped it, and then I also summarized it in a blog post. And those of you interested can go to kylep.ca/4-part math. That's the number 4, kylep.ca/4-part math. Or you can just head straight to my blog, tapintoteenminds.com. You'll see a link on the side. That's one of the recent posts. So hopefully people will find that useful, and maybe we'll make some more connections, kind of looking at it again and seeing it from a visualized perspective.
Oh, that's good. I like when you tape yourself at a conference and then start, or at a lecture and then start blogging about it. That's the way to go, I think. That's a good resource right there.
Absolutely, it's something that just recently I'm starting to do it more often now, and more so I'm seeing the value in what I learn about how we say things. Right, you listen to yourself and you watch yourself, you think that you're being very clear, and then oftentimes you realize you're like, oh, I didn't really express that very well, or I didn't articulate that very well. So I'm doing it for a little bit of professional growth, but at the same time, I figure if I can share that with those who are interested on the blog, hey, let's get that information out there, and hopefully we can all build on it.
That's great. That's great. Well, we'll put the links to that in the Listly that we create for each show. We have I think it's been a week old. It might be a week old today, but we have a Google Classroom for iOS app update, and I tried to use it a little bit, and I was happy that Kyle tried to use it a little bit, and we found that our view on it was pretty similar. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you thought of the Google Classroom for iOS app?
Yeah, I was really excited. It actually came out and was I just stumbled upon it. I think it was actually Greg Kulowick from EdTech Teacher who had tweeted it out. I had heard nothing about it. I think it came out that same day that he sent the tweet out, and I said, you know what, I got to jump in here and download this thing. And downloading it, looking at it, looks very clean, looks similar to the web version when students on an iPad would run it from Safari. Looks clean, but it was a little clunky running it in the browser. So I thought that the iOS app would really clean things up. It did. It runs really well. However, I noticed that some of the features, when Google Classroom, I think, is still pretty scarce on the features available currently, and then reducing some of those, like, for example, going into, as a teacher, going to an assignment and trying to see what a student had submitted. There was no way to actually click on or tap on that student and be able to see the work, whether it's a PDF or a Google Doc or whatever it is that they're submitting. So I would have to go to Google Drive and find that folder. So on the web, I didn't have to do that. I could click on the name and I could actually go to the file. So that was the first one that jumped out at me. Anything jump out, at first glance for you, John?
Yeah, I did see that you couldn't, as a teacher, create an assignment, which I thought was interesting. And I had another teacher with me that I work with, Kat, and Kat was a student and I was the teacher, and we entered each other's classrooms, and so we were trying to, uploading a photo. It did seem like it took a little while, and the little colored circle was spinning, and it was interesting how it flipped you out of the app to go, and if you clicked on a link, it would flip you actually into the Google, and it would open a different app and open the Google Drive app without really kind of warning you and say, hey, we're about to open Google Drive. And so I think that could be confusing for people. So if you do download it and try it out, which I'm totally on board for, right, Kyle? Don't you think they should get Google Classroom if they're using Classroom with their class?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think too, it is their first offering, on iOS as an operating platform for them. So again, I was using it directly out of the web browser. I've really found it useful for trying to organize the files in the cloud. So that for me was big. It's been in the middle. Like, they want to be I don't want to say a formal LMS, but they do want to offer that organization that's missing from just using shared folders and so forth and Drive. So they've accomplished that on the web. In the app, I think there's a little bit of work to be done there. And I'm just checking again. I just want to be very clear that maybe I didn't miss an update here or anything like that. Yeah, I can't see student work from here. When I do post work for students, so if, for example, if I'm giving students a review assignment or a task to work on, they'll see the announcement, and then at the bottom, instead of it being a link, like a big, almost like a bar that you can tap on in order to open up that file in Drive or wherever it's stored, now it actually shows up as an attachment. And what it reminds me of is how the attachments in Google Calendar work, where if there's an attachment on a calendar entry, you have to click attachment, and then it'll open up a new window. In this case, it's opening up a new kind of tab, and now I can actually tap on the attachment. So I'm thinking if they could reduce the number of clicks, also make some of the current features like viewing student work available on the iOS app, I really think it'll be something that we'll be switching to once those features do come out.
You know what was funny is they have updated it since then. They updated it about 3 days ago or 2 days ago, and it does work like on my phone. It works, so that's always a good thing. So I like the
Mhm.
stuff that also works on my phone because that's usually what I'm carrying around if I'm around students. But it's funny because it just said Google Classroom and then it just gave a description. You know how usually when something updates, it'll say this is bug fixes for da 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 da. It didn't even say that. It just gave a little summary of what the Google Classroom app was all about. I kind of laughed. I'm like, thanks for being very vague with what you just updated. But that's what they did.
Hopefully it's nothing tracking or something. We just added something to track even further, you know.
That's right. We're tracking your location now, but definitely make sure that
Yeah.
you follow the directions, and it does say that pretty clearly when you download it. Make sure you have Google Drive, make sure you have the Google Docs app, and make sure you have Google Sheets on whatever phone or iPad that you use it on, because it is the iOS app. So it's interesting. I'm happy for it. I was a little disappointed, but I know they'll fix it. It felt a lot like a beta after testing it. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's
I think some good things will be coming. And I know when I was at the Google Teacher Academy in December, we actually did a Google Hangout with some of the team members working on Google Classroom and GAF and all of those things. And Google Classroom specifically, I had a number of suggestions we discussed in the last podcast, like being able to attach files to comments, such as images, to maybe offer feedback. So, you know, I could take a student work and I can add something to it and then send it back to a student rather than having to, you know, put it into Drive and share a link and all of those things. So just some of that organizational and the structure of how things work rather than it being just a ongoing stream. I found that to be a bit of a challenge. So I'm really hoping that, you know, over time, that it will start to, you know, offer some of those features and some of those, I guess, ability or functionality so that we can organize things and have, you know, as a semester goes on, things pile up and students need to know where to get these things without having to, you know, fire through an entire stream to locate them.
Yeah, that's totally true. Tagging is always a good thing in that case. All right, so that's good. That's our summary of Google Classroom for iOS. I like it, and I'm hoping it keeps. I hope they keep improving it. And you know what? I trust the Googles. I know they will. I think.
Absolutely.
So let's go ahead and talk about what we didn't get to last time. Let's talk a little bit about MathSpace. And I'm just interested now to hear, and I'm going to kick it over to Kyle, and I'm just going to listen and be amazed, and then hopefully take down some notes so that I can take it back to my teachers in my school district.
Yeah, I heard originally MathSpace, I heard about it from Dan Mayer's blog post. Now it would be a couple months back, probably back in November, I'm thinking, maybe even October. His post title was "The Scary Side of Immediate Feedback." And his point he was trying to make is that, you know, I think that with technology, we're trying to get robots or algorithms to try to assess student work for us, especially in mathematics. A lot of times, you know, we're going online. Khan Academy, for example, they have practice problem sets that students can use for free. However, most of them are knowledge-based questions. A lot of them are multiple choice. So, you know, it really doesn't, while it helps students learn, and I think it helps their growth, if students do those types of things versus not doing them at all. What we need to remember is that that's not the only thing we want students to know in math. We don't want them just memorizing things. We don't want them knowing how to make simple calculations. And in my opinion, when we look at the industrial age, you know, we were teaching kids to do specific tasks repeatedly, right? So when we're talking about doing rote mathematics where students are doing the same thing over and over, you know, solve for this side, solve for this side, solve for this side, we're taking on the mentality of almost like working on the line in a factory where you have one task and you just need to know how to do that one thing. You don't need to think about it, just do it and do it well. I think we're moving away from that. Anytime you can do something like on a line, whether it's on the line in an automotive factory or whatever it might be, those jobs are being replaced by machines and by computers. So we need to get kids thinking. So we just have to be careful not to stay stagnant with the idea that learning math is about just knowledge and basic computation. It's much deeper than that. It's about problem solving and thinking and being creative. And that's what I think Dan Mayer was trying to get at here. And with MathSpace, they've actually created an iOS app that will recognize student handwriting. So the best part about that for someone like me, who's a math teacher, it's really difficult for students to understand math when we're writing it on paper, let alone when we're trying to type it out. So MathSpace, what they've done is they've allowed students to be able to actually write their solutions out, and then they will use their hand recognition software to essentially turn it into a more computerized math text, whether it's LaTeX or whatever they're using. The problem we're seeing here is that by doing this, by using hand recognition software, they only have so many ways students can write things. They're really trying to help students with their form, with their math written form. So entering it in a specific way. So if it says write an equation and a student writes an expression, they would be incorrect. So it's offering them feedback throughout the process by giving them a little check mark saying you're on the right track. However, for many students, that can be very frustrating if they're not writing it the way MathSpace is expecting it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of what's been really, I think, eating away at that particular company. They have tons of great ideas. Their CEOs and their managers. I've been working with a few of them, and now their names Daniel and I can't remember the other gentleman's name, but they've been really good with kind of hearing what my students have had to say about it. My students have used it, and I work with struggling students, and those students hate MathSpace currently, and it's simply because they don't know the form, right? They need to work on the knowledge piece, something similar to Khan Academy, prior to having, their math written appropriately and formatted nicely. So that can really frustrate a struggling student. So my question for them is always, how do we build something that's going to help students who need it most, and not necessarily help students who are successful get even more successful? Because I think that's what a lot of these programs actually do, is they cater to the students who are already right on track, and they just want to extend their thinking, and they want to work harder. But then we're leaving behind the other disengaged students. Like, we need something for them, and I think they're working on a few things to try to make that improvement.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. That's good. So at least they're reaching out to you and just asking you for your opinion, which is always helpful, right? When they ask teachers and consult teachers.
Yeah, they've been great, and the best part is that they don't want anyone sugarcoating it. I mean, Dan Mayer gave them a pretty rough review, and that's why I wanted to try it out. I love what they're trying to do, but they're trying to do something that's really big. Like, they're trying to predict what students mean, rather than multiple choice. You've only got 4 or 5 options, so it's really obvious. But the problem is that they want to focus on feedback. So how can you give specific feedback to an individual, or individualized feedback, when you don't necessarily know exactly what students are thinking, right? It's really difficult for us to predict that from any type of computer algorithm. So Dan Mayer's post basically is outlining that, is that we really have to be careful not to try to allow computers to decide what students need to improve on, because that's kind of the role of the teacher. And I think it could be a really great practice tool and helping students get better, but they have to be really lenient on that formatting issue, as I mentioned. If you don't put a degree sign, or if you don't put your units in, now it's saying that they're wrong, and students don't know where they're wrong. So they're really, they're way ahead of the pack in terms of what they're trying to do, but because of that, they're also going to get a lot of pushback while they do it. So I'm really excited to see where they take MathSpace. I think they have a lot of great ideas, and I'm hoping that I can continue offering them some ideas to see if we can't make this a tool that could be useful for all students, not just those who are already experiencing quite a bit of success.
That's good. That's good. I will check that out for sure. It's almost like, it reminds me of course, I know that you're high school, I'm elementary, and when we would give these kind of like these they were multiple choice computerized assessments to the students, and so sometimes the kindergartners or first graders would come in, and if they were really like on their money with their math, they would answer all these questions, and then eventually they would get to something that was really, really hard because it was trying to peel it back and see what their level was. And so then the kids would kind of look back at me after, a kindergartner gets a multiplication question, and they kind of look at me like, look back, and I'm like, sorry. And but that was kind of one of those things where they're trying to find their level, but it's funny because I'm like, that's just so inappropriate for at some point when I know that they may be tested so far up that they're going in and trying, but that was one of the things you're trying to find, like their level that they were at, so that you could instruct them and they could be at their instructional level. But right, sometimes these kids would get fractions and they're in kindergarten. They were smart kids. They kind of look back at me and I'm like, take your best guess. And then I'm like, but what happens if they just, and then you're supposed to just say, I can't help you, take your best guess. What happens if they guess correctly on a fraction one in this kindergarten? They have no idea. I mean, they do have a 25% chance of getting it right. So I don't know. Sometimes, right. That's, I think, that kind of falls into the same category of what you're talking about a little bit there from an elementary standpoint.
Yeah, anytime you're trying to predict what level a student is at, I mean, there can be, as you can imagine, there's gaps in students' knowledge when they enter school. So as they come up, and especially as we get into high school, like the gaps can be all over the place. You might have a student who's really strong in one area, so now a computer is assuming that, they'll be able to handle this, but they haven't made that connection for whatever reason. It seems logical that they would have, but that's where the teacher should be coming in, right? So I think to find that healthy balance between having these computer and all this technology to help aid in our teaching and help make our lives easier as teachers without necessarily trying to get them, or I say them as if they're people, to get the technology to do the work that essentially we've worked our entire careers trying to gain through experience, right? It's really tough for that to happen. So again, I think these can be really, really useful to help teachers determine where students should go. But we have to be careful that we're not, we're not causing students frustration by, putting them in a position where, hey, they did a question right, now they get into a question that's just a complete roadblock for them, where they're going, I have no idea what's going on, and get frustrated, and now they feel a lack of confidence because they're not successful on that next task. So, just some things that we need to always be cognizant of anyway.
That's right. I mean, there is something to be said about teacher observation and experience on some of those things. I think that you can't just rely on all these numbers that come in. It's like, okay, well, I tested them and they're at this level. Okay, but yeah, just make sure that you're watching what's going on too with the student. It's always good.
Yeah, and I think too. Yeah, we look at things like Khan Academy, and a lot of people bash Khan Academy, but I mean, there's millions of people using it and finding it very effective. But again, going and stepping back for a second, I think when we're looking for solutions to problems in education, and when we're talking specifically about mathematics, that we want students to look at math and see math in the world around us and feel confident in math, and not necessarily, have that idea that I'm not a math person, or I hate math, or I never was good at math. We want them to feel confident, but the problem is a lot of these programs come up, and then we start asking ourselves and say, with all of the resources out there, with all of the tools available that are free for people to use, how come this isn't changing? And I think the problem lies in that we're addressing the wrong group of students, because those who are interested in math are interested in going home and trying to get to that next place. So if you're a student who's excelling and they're not, maybe they're bored in class, Khan Academy offers them a way to extend their thinking and challenge themselves. But those are, again, not the students that we actually need to be serving here. We need to find ways to help the students who have struggled, who aren't going to go home and say, you know what, I'm not doing so great in math, I should probably find a resource online. They're thinking the opposite. They're thinking, I want to stay as far away from this stuff as I possibly can, right? The bell went, I am out of here. I'm not thinking about this for another 23 hours, right? Until I'm back in here, tomorrow for an hour. So I think we need to find ways to almost kind of get students in the door and get them engaged in wanting to excel and wanting to move themselves further. And that's what I think we're missing in the market. So if there's any developers out there, that I think is where you're going to see the next big educational boom, is finding those ways to address those who are struggling. Those are the ones that districts are willing to spend the money on. We spend money on technology, and it might help our, middle of the pack or higher end students that are experiencing the success. But again, we're not scratching the surface where we actually need it, where it's going to appear in standardized tests or however they make those judgments, whether you like them or not.
That's a good. I mean, those are all good points. I totally agree with you. Would we? All right. So that was those are all things that I think we've actually have. I don't know if you know this, Kyle, but we actually have one where Jake Duncan and I talk to developers, and so we have Devlandia as well. So maybe if the next time
I heard a recent episode with one of your former students. I can't remember his name.
Nilan, who made who created the app, just as a summer project for him. That was his challenge for himself. But he was
Isn't that awesome?
But he was always he was one of those top people. He was always a great math student, and that was the advanced math class in 4th grade. But yeah, it was really cool to hear him talk about that stuff. I love that. We're going to try and get some more students, and we've actually got a few developers kind of asking to be on there. So it's always the time zone thing, right? Just like with us, the Eastern Pacific time zone can be problematic. Now, I would like you to go over. Can you do a quick summary of your blog post on Silent Solution Videos with my old friend and coworker Matthew Cathy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I thought it would be something great to just kind of throw out there, and I'm interested to hear what other people are thinking. So if you're interested in getting your opinions out about these silent solutions, definitely tweet Matthew Cathy or Mathlete Pierce, myself, and hey, throw no, not iPad Sammy in there anymore. Throw
John Samuelson without the H, yeah.
Yeah, and maybe follow him as well in case you haven't already followed him. I don't even think I'm following your new account, by the way, yet. So I'm going to have to do that.
I think it just switches over, Kyle. It's okay. I think you're there. I'll check while you're talking. Oh, you're
nice,
following.
Perfect.
You're good.
Oh, good. But yeah, we were talking earlier this week. Ideas about the flipped classroom have come up. I'm sure we could go on all day about that. But I really wonder, when we do this flipped classroom idea, and me, I'm not really using a flipped style, but I do like to provide extra video resources for students. What we're finding is, and Jenny Magera, when I was at the Google Teacher Academy in December, she had mentioned that after a lot of research, some research came down saying that when you offer a video to a viewer on YouTube, for example, as soon as you go over that 1 minute mark, the potential for someone to actually watch your video goes down drastically. Mm-hmm. So just that almost like the psychological effect of seeing a certain number of seconds. So if it's 50 seconds, that seems manageable. There it is, because time is money, right?
Hey, wait, Cal, watch this. I forgot we aren't doing sound effects. Mention Jenny again. Say her name one more time.
Jenny Magera.
That's my new Jenny sound effect. I love Jenny. Okay, but I'm with you on this, because I totally agree with this, and I'm looking through your videos right now. So yeah.
It was something that kind of came to me because I thought, a lot of times I'd tried everything. I've tried doing really in-depth videos. I had a chat with Dan Mayer a while back, probably last May, I believe it was. And he kind of challenged my thinking on even offering videos at all. He said, if they don't understand what you're doing in class, what's putting it up online gonna, how's that gonna help, right? And I was like, great question. So I've been doing a lot of thinking about that, and I was thinking that if students aren't even gonna watch that 3-minute video, 5-minute video, I've seen, some of my videos are 10 minutes long. Mm-hmm. If kids aren't gonna watch them anyway, or if it's that group we talked about already that probably doesn't need to watch it. They've already got what they need. Maybe they're just looking for that little bit of, that little piece that they're missing from their understanding. It's great for them, but it's not going to help the students who need the resource. So my thought was, what if we cut this video length down to under a minute, like Jenny shared with me last month? Could we get more students to watch it and commit to watching it? But how could we do that? And I thought, if I'm talking in the video, that's typically what causes the length to blow up, right? So my thought was, if I use just the pause tool in Explain Everything or Doceri or whatever screencasting app you're using, if I'm pausing in between steps, it will keep my time down to 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds, with the idea being that students could pause it at any point, try to do some of the thinking themselves, try to make that meaning for themselves rather than just listening to me. So I've been doing this more or less as recap. So this isn't introducing topics. We talked at length with a few people on Twitter, Matthew, Kathy, and I, about that. I don't think we should introduce a new topic this way, but if we're talking about recapping or offering, that's why we call it silent solutions. If we're offering students solutions, rather than it being a paper pencil solution, hey guys, click on this link, you'll see all the solutions you want, or go to the back of the textbook or whatever it is. Now you've got 20 seconds, you'll see this problem being broken down into steps. Sometimes I do it in multiple ways. I'll do like 2 or 3 different methods. And if we can get through 2 or 3 different methods in 30 seconds, students can, again, hopefully watch that video, pause it where they need to, and then obviously address it with friends, with their teachers, with their tutors, whatever it might be, to try to make any of those connections that maybe aren't so clear. So we're trying it out. We'll see how it goes, and I'm interested to see if anybody else has some thoughts on that.
Well, I'll tell you my thoughts right now. That is awesome. I'm looking at the page, and so you have the whole playlist down there. You have about 38 of them, and I love that idea. I think that's a great idea. I think that's really, I think it combines a lot of elements, and you're right that whenever I go a little bit longer on some of my other videos where I used to try and make them for companies. I used to make them 2 minutes was my mark if I'm introducing like a product and how to use it. But I think this is great. I would ideally always like to go under a minute. I totally agree with Jenny. That is very cool.
I think too, at the end of the day, what it can also do, and I've noticed this just in, all of these videos that are up here have only been uploaded in the past week. And you'll notice the last math tutorial video or something along those lines that actually broke down an actual problem was quite a while ago, because in my mind, you get, that a little bit of perfectionism going on, right? Where you're going, okay, so want to make sure I'm in an area where it's quiet so that I can talk, and if I mess up, I'm going to have to re-record the audio track or do something like that. Whereas here, it's really simple because you're not using sound at all. So it's all about, using that pause button, doing your next step. If you make a mistake, you erase it because you're not recording as you do the actual step. Now it will hopefully empower myself and maybe some other teachers to maybe use this method to get more of their solutions out there rather than keeping it in a static form. Now students can see those steps happen. Teachers don't feel pressure for it to be perfect. We just want it short and sweet. And if a mistake happens, you don't have to start your video over because that pause button's on anyway while you're doing any writing on the screen. So for me, there's quite a few, benefits to this. I don't know if students yet are liking it, but again, if they're getting this versus nothing, I would say that they would prefer something than nothing. If they were getting this versus a static solution, or maybe even just the answer in the back of the textbook, I have to assume that they're going to pick this. If they're getting this to introduce a topic the night before, like a flipped classroom style, I would probably think that they wouldn't like this, right? So I think it's all in how we use it. So I like to be really clear that I would never use this as a way to just introduce a new topic, kind of put it on the students' shoulders, and then the next day, they're expected to start doing work with this stuff. This is more recap. Students can go back and not waste a ton of time to try to address some of their learning goals that they've struggled with in the past without that 10-minute video or having to search through and use the scrubber to get to where they need to be.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think that's perfect, because then even if you were talking about what we were just kind of talking about with the computer assessment, if the kids knew something that they had taken, let's say they had taken the chapter test or something, and they knew what concept they kind of struggled with on mastery for that chapter, they could go back look at the videos and takes a quick second, kind of try and analyze, go through, and then maybe when they comes up, like you said, it's almost the end of your semester, so it's finals time. They could go through and review those items, and then maybe they've got them. I think that's an awesome idea. I really like it.
That's excellent. Now, I guess the challenge, and I'm hoping maybe someone out there listening will help us with this, is, is that, again, is it going to help that middle of the pack and some of our really successful students? Like, is it going to be enough that it's under a minute to get some of these students to kind of buy in? So I'm still trying to find the way to get that buy-in piece. Like, how can I do this, help these students? Because I think if these students were to watch these videos after trying the problems on their own, this isn't going to fix everything. They've still got to do the work, and they still need to, put the practice in. But how can we lure them in to, kind of take their own learning into their own hands and really self-assess themselves and say, you know what, I should take that 30 seconds to go check this out, and maybe it'll help me with this problem that I'm struggling on. So we'll see how it goes with our next class coming up next semester.
That's awesome. I really like that. Well, I'm going to see if I can take some of those back and see if we can get some of our fourth graders making some of these in their own class. I would love to see some students just make their own videos, or maybe they watch the video, try, and then resubmit a problem and say, okay, is this the right way after I watched, that would be, I think that's an awesome solution.
I think actually, as you're typing, or as you're saying that, I'm typing this out in my to-do list for next semester. I think that would be a great idea, John, to get the kids creating some of these silent solutions, so we can, almost like crowdsource, a playlist of learning goals for a class, right? What a great class project if you can get students doing it. Even a student who doesn't like, their voice on a video, they can do this and not have to necessarily speak. Or maybe maybe it's very limited speaking, something like that, right?
Right. We were just talking a little bit about this in one of our Voxer groups. We were talking about introverted students. Do we force them to kind of try and get out of their comfort zone and present and things like that? The silent video takes that away from them. So maybe you could get some of those students that, like you said, that were on maybe the lower end. You could be like, hey, you know what? We'd like you to try this out. See if you can get this problem, and we'll post it up there for you. Sometimes just the public displaying of students' works can really motivate them. So you never know. But I like these.
Or even like a math minute, so maybe it doesn't take on the, as you're saying that, I kind of look at it and think it could be a good starting point for a student who might be a little bit more introverted and may not want to get their voice recorded. Maybe that's how we start, and then throughout the year, maybe that student does voiceovers for some of their silent solutions. So brings it into iMovie and records a voiceover, and really has to think about what they're going to say before they say it. Not necessarily scripted, but I'm sure you've had the 8-minute student video that is explaining, step by step by step, but it's to the point where it's almost too long. So this might be a good way to kind of scaffold them to trying to be a little more clear with their thinking when they're trying to make their thinking visible.
I think it's great. I love it. So that's great. You gave me some idea. You know what? Even if no one listens, you gave me some great ideas to take back. That's always
it's all about you and me, right? That's
right. No, people will listen. See, we go on with low expectations on people that listen to the podcast, but people listen to the podcast. I have a suggestion for them also, which kind of reminds me of a little bit my old friend Eric Marcos. So if you've ever seen Math Train TV and the kids do the solutions to the videos, this is almost like a little mini silent Math Train. But Eric Marcos and Math Train TV is a good resource for people. And we're also, as we wrap up, we're also going to go in and we're going to talk about, we're going to try and get some firsthand experience for the next show, and we're really going to talk about the Math Chat app, and I'm going to go to one of my schools and I'm going to go see it in action. Are giving rave reviews about it. And what are you going to do? Are you going to try and use it with your students in the new semester, Kyle?
Absolutely. I actually just sent in our app list now that the iPads are being rolled over. Students are going to be taking them home next semester, so we're hoping that the Math Chat app will be on there. There's a couple different apps I'm hoping to look at as well, so we should have some good ideas for our next episode.
Well, thanks, Kyle. I really thought these were some great ideas. I love it. Remember that you can find Jenny McGarrah, Matthew Cathy. You can find Kyle at tapintoteenminds.com. That's where you can check out all the blog posts. We'll also get a listly going. It's always, you know what our biggest enemy is? Time.
The one.
Time. But anyway, thanks for being on all the way up in Canada. I appreciate it, and we will catch you on the flip side.